There are addictive phenomena that are not recognizable as such at first glance, such as the addiction to socialism. The harmfulness of socialism is well known, not least from around 100 years of socialist practice. Nevertheless, it is striven for again and again. Many believe that socialism only exists when it is called exactly that. They do not realize that socialism can take different forms. There are more similarities between socialism with a nationalist slant and socialism in its equal form than its advocates would like. German author Rainer Fasnacht, in his article published on the Mises Institute's websites, cited three indicators that make it possible to recognize how widespread socialism thinking and actions are. First, the extent to which citizens call on the state when challenges arise. Secondly, the extent to which the government turns challenges into political problems. Thirdly, the degree of existing restrictions on freedom and loss of prosperity. The clearer these indicators are, the more pronounced the addiction to socialism. Fasnacht also recognizes that there are two groups of socialism addicts. On the one hand, those with political power, that is, the ability to enforce certain ideas through coercion. On the other hand, those without power, who call for the state and demand its intervention. For the first group, socialism is associated with intoxicating gains in power. The second group succumbs to illusions of a world without personal responsibility and scarcity. In addition, there are some socialism addicts among both groups who succumb to the dazzling illusion that the wish alone would guarantee its fulfillment. However, those who reflexively call for the state when a problem arises overlook the fact that the solution to the problem by the state ultimately means that they themselves, as taxpayers, pay for it, but do not determine the way in which the problem is solved. The socialism addict thus gives up his own power. They pay for the delusion with a real loss of freedom, prosperity, and power in the sense of renouncing their own agency. Election campaign promises in particular, which paint a picture of the state of a kind of a fully comprehensive insurance for all situations in life, reveal the spread of socialism addiction. Fortunately, there are ways to do something about the addiction to socialism. The most important means is the withdrawal of power. So to counteract the addiction to socialism, you should replace the call for the state with your own actions. This also applies in situations where more than one person is needed to tackle the problem. Virtually all challenges can be overcome through voluntary cooperation. For example, one can demand that the state must provide free nursery places, which means nothing other than that other people pay for the child not to be looked after by its own parents. Alternatively, it would also be possible to coordinate with other parents and organize cooperative care in a private circle. The lack of alternatives to state intervention is one of the illusions of socialism addiction. If one fights against these illusions, alternatives become visible that were previously assumed not to exist. By fighting the addiction into socialism, power is regained that did not seem to be available. Socialism deprives us of power over large parts of our own lives. The fight against this addiction helps us to regain it. Withdrawal is known to be painful. People who previously had political power crave the intoxicating effect of exercising power. People without political power must do without the dazzling illusion of a world without scarcity and responsibility. If withdrawal is not successful, those addicted to socialism can become a danger to other people. In order to remain intoxicated by power, socialism addicts in position of power may extend the use of coercion beyond the usual political level. Undermining democracy and the rule of law to the point of using threats, coercion, and ultimately violence to maintain power is not uncommon. The failure of withdrawal among socialism addicts without political power usually leads to their dazzling mirage being shattered by reality. As socialism expands, they are increasingly confronted with its unavoidable negative consequences. For these people, a paradisical illusion becomes a hellish reality, so to speak. People without political power therefore have a greater incentive to successfully fight the addictions to socialism. This was very clearly visible in Argentina recently. The consequences of socialism were already so pronounced here that the addicts without power elected Javier Milei as president, who did not promise paradise but instead gave hope for a successful withdrawal. However, while the citizens of Argentina elected a president who is committed to streamlining the state, most German voters have so far voted without embarrassment for politicians and parties that represent socialist positions to varying degrees and want to further expand the state. Germany's addiction to socialism becomes very clear during election campaigns. But it is only after the election that the ambiguity of the word promise becomes apparent. It could mean a binding promise or a slip of the tongue, a statement that was not meant to be. Socialist election campaign promises actually always belong to the second group because they almost always fail and cause enormous damage.